She is a beauty, isn't she? My father-in-law, Robert, beamed. He slapped the hull of the 24-foot pontoon boat sitting in my driveway like he was congratulating an old friend. Paid cash, no financing. I stared at the boat. The aluminum caught the afternoon sun and sent a blinding glare into my eyes. I looked at my husband, Mark. He was looking at his shoes. I looked back at Robert. Where did you get $62,000, Robert? You are on a fixed state pension. He smirked. He took a sip of his beer and wiped the foam from his lip with the back of his hand. We just borrowed a little liquidity from Leo's account. The boy is 5, Danielle. He does not need college yet. We need a boat. My name is Danielle, and I am 34 years old. To my husband's family, I was just the uptight daughter-in-law who ruined the vibe by asking too many questions. They called me the librarian behind my back. They called me that because I was quiet. I wore glasses. I always insisted on reading the fine print before signing birthday cards or group gift checks. They thought I was boring. They thought my job as a senior benefits administrator for the state municipal fund was just shuffling papers and filing forms in a basement. They thought I spent my days using a stapler. They did not realize that paperwork is exactly how you control the flow of money to thousands of retirees. That included them. I was not rich, I was not glamorous, but I had something they did not expect. I had their file. I spent 10 years being treated like the hired help while they spent money they did not earn. If you have ever been the one person in the family who actually understands how money works while everyone else treats it like magic, hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comments. If your in-laws stole your child's future, would you play nice or would you press the button? Click hype if you are ready to see the math finally add up. It was supposed to be a simple Sunday barbecue at our house. My in-laws, Robert and Linda, showed up 2 hours early. I was still marinating the chicken in the kitchen when I heard the heavy crunch of tires on gravel. It sounded like a truck. I wiped my hands on a towel and walked out to the front porch. They were towing a brand new, gleaming pontoon boat behind their Ford F-150. It was massive. It took up the entire driveway. Robert jumped out of the driver's seat looking like he had just won the lottery. Linda climbed out the passenger side wearing a sun hat and holding a bottle of sparkling wine. They were ecstatic. They talked about living their golden years. They talked about how much fun Leo, my 5-year-old son, would have on the lake. When Robert admitted they borrowed the money from Leo's UTMA account, the air left my lungs. It felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. My parents had started that fund when Leo was born. They were not wealthy people. They contributed monthly from their Social Security checks. $50 here, $100 there. Over 5 years, it had grown. When my father passed away, he left a lump sum to boost it. Robert and Linda were listed as custodians only because my husband Mark had been deployed overseas when the account was opened. I was not a blood relative yet. I trusted them to leave it alone. You drained the account, I asked. My voice was trembling. I could hear the blood rushing in my ears. There was $62,000 in there. We'll pay it back, Linda said. She waved a hand dismissively as she unpacked potato salad from a cooler. Don't be so dramatic, Danielle. The market is volatile. A boat is a hard asset. We are actually protecting his inheritance. She smiled as if she were doing me a favor. You stole from a preschooler, I said. Robert laughed. It was a loud barking sound that grated on my nerves. We are the grandparents. We are the custodians. Legally, it is our discretion. You should be thanking us for including him in the family boat. Now get me a cold one, would you? I did not get him a cold one. I walked inside the house and locked myself in the bathroom. I needed to breathe. I turned on the faucet and splashed cold water on my face. I looked at myself in the mirror. I looked tired. I looked like a woman who had spent a decade swallowing insults to keep the peace. Not today. The next 48 hours were a masterclass in entitlement. It started with my husband. Mark tried to confront them after the barbecue. I listened from the top of the stairs. He sounded weak. He sounded like a little boy asking for permission to be upset. They gaslit him instantly. "We raised you, Mark," Robert said. "We paid for your braces. We paid for your summer camps. Are you really going to begrudge us a little happiness in our final years over some numbers on a screen?" Mark came home defeated. He mumbled that maybe they would pay it back. He said we should give them time. He said we should not ruin the relationship over money. Then came the second betrayal. Linda posted a photo of the boat on Facebook the next morning. It was a picture of her and Robert holding champagne glasses on the deck of the boat. The caption read, "Hard work pays off. Blessed. Grandparents' life." I stared at the screen. Hard work? They hadn't worked in 15 years. They had stolen my dead father's savings and my son's future and called it hard work. When I commented asking about the repayment schedule, she deleted my comment. Then she blocked me. The third betrayal happened on Tuesday. I printed a formal repayment agreement. It was fair. It offered them a 5-year plan with low interest. I drove to their house. It was a nice house, a ranch style with a manicured lawn. Robert answered the door holding a beer. He did not invite me in. I handed him the paper. He didn't even read it. He tore it in half in front of me. The sound of the paper ripping was sharp and loud in the quiet afternoon. "You are not a blood Ashford, Danielle," he said. "You do not dictate terms to us. You are just the admin girl. Stick to filing papers and stay out of family business." He threw the torn pieces of paper at my feet. Then he closed the door. I stood on their porch. I looked at the pieces of paper fluttering in the wind. I looked at the closed door. They thought my job was just filing papers. They thought I was small. They forgot that they were state retirees, and they forgot that I was the one who approved their monthly pension disbursements. I spent 10 years being treated like the hired help while they spent money they did not earn. If you have ever been the one person in the family who actually understands how money works while everyone else treats it like magic, hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comments. If your in-laws stole your child's future, would you play nice or would you press the button? Click hype if you are ready to see the math finally add up. What they did not know was that 3 months ago, I had performed a routine audit of the state pension system. It was boring work. It involved cross-referencing thousands of beneficiary files with Social Security death indices and employment records. During that audit, I had flagged a discrepancy in several files. One of those files belonged to Robert Ashford. To maximize their monthly payout, Robert had claimed a dependent child allowance. The state pension system pays an extra $450 a month if the retiree has a child under the age of 18 living in the home. Robert had claimed Mark. He had claimed Mark when Mark was 10. That was legal. But he had never removed Mark from the beneficiary listing. Mark was 32 years old. Mark had a mortgage. Mark had a wife. Mark had not lived in that house for 14 years. They had been receiving an extra $450 a month for over a decade. It was fraud, plain and simple. It was theft of state funds. I had not reported it yet. I had noticed it, and I had paused. I was waiting for the annual review cycle to correct it quietly. I wanted to spare them the embarrassment. I wanted to protect the family name. I was protecting them, but protection is a privilege. It is not a right. And they just bought a boat with the price of that protection. They told me to stick to filing papers, so I decided to file some papers. As a senior benefits administrator, I have the authority to initiate an immediate compliance freeze on any account suspected of defrauding the state system. I do not need a judge. I do not need a lawyer. I do not need a police report. I just need a discrepancy and a keystroke. I went into work early on Wednesday morning. The office smelled like floor wax and old coffee. I loved that smell. It smelled like order. It smelled like rules. I walked to my cubicle and turned on my computer. The screen glowed blue. I logged into the mainframe. I pulled up Robert Ashford's file. There it was. Dependent child, Mark Ashford. Status, active. Birth date, verified. Current age, 32. I printed the screen. Then I printed the Facebook photo of the boat captioned, "Hard work pays off." I gathered my evidence. I walked into the office of Mr. Henderson. He was the director of state benefits. He was a man of absolute rules. He wore gray suits. He hated two things. He hated fraud, and he hated people who bragged about it. I knocked on his door. He looked up over his reading glasses. "Danielle, good morning. What do you have for me?" I laid the two pieces of paper on his desk, the file printout and the Facebook photo. "I found a discrepancy during my review, sir," I said. Henderson adjusted his glasses. He looked at the file. "This beneficiary, Mark Ashford, that is your husband?" "Yes, sir, and he has not lived with them in 14 years. Henderson frowned. He looked at the Facebook photo. He looked at the caption, "Hard work pays off." "They are spending state overpayments on luxury assets while stealing from a minor," I said quietly. "They drained my son's college fund to buy this boat." Henderson's face went hard. He leaned back in his chair. He tapped his finger on the desk. "Initiate the clawback," he said. "Yes, sir." "Freeze the pension. Immediate suspension of benefits until the overpayment is restituted in full. How much do they owe the state?" I smiled. It was a small, cold smile. "With penalties and interest, roughly $60,000. Henderson nodded. "Do it." "And Danielle?" "Yes, sir." "Good catch." I walked back to my desk. I typed in the command code. I entered the suspension authorization. I hit enter. The screen flashed green. Account suspended, pending investigation. It was done. It happened on Wednesday. It was deposit day. This is the day state pensions hit the bank accounts of thousands of retirees. It is usually a quiet day, but not today. I was sitting in my cubicle organizing files when I heard the shouting. It started in the lobby. I heard the security guard trying to calm someone down. Then I heard Robert's voice. It was loud. It was angry. "I demand to see someone in charge," he yelled. "My money is gone." They stormed into the office at 10:15 in the morning, Robert and Linda. They did not have an appointment. They pushed past the receptionist. They marched straight to the benefits floor. They knew where I sat. I had given them a tour once years ago. Robert's face was purple. He looked like he was going to explode. Linda looked terrified. Her hair was messy. She was clutching her purse like it contained the last of her oxygen. "You!" Robert shouted. He pointed a finger at me from across the room. The office went silent. 30 people stopped typing. 30 heads turned. My coworkers knew exactly who these people were. I had told them about the boat. They watched over their monitors with wide eyes. "What did you do?" Robert screamed. "Our funds are frozen. The account is empty." I stood up. I adjusted my blazer. I smoothed my skirt. I walked out of my cubicle to meet them in the aisle. "Hello, Robert. Hello, Linda. Please keep your voices down." "Fix it," Linda screeched. "We have auto payments set up. The boat insurance, the slip fee, it's all bouncing." "I cannot fix it," I said. My voice was ice cold. "Your pension has been flagged for long-term fraud." "Fraud?" Robert sputtered. "What are you talking about?" I handed them a printout. It was the official notice of benefit suspension and overpayment recovery. "You have been claiming Mark as a dependent for 12 years past his eligibility," I explained. I spoke loud enough for the room to hear. "That constitutes theft of state funds. Per statute, your monthly payments are suspended immediately until the total overpayment of $62,400 is restituted in full." Robert grabbed the paper. His hands were shaking. He read the numbers. He looked at me. His eyes were wide with shock. "You did this," he hissed. "You pressed the button." "I audited the file," I corrected. "You told me to stick to filing papers, Robert, so I did. I filed the fraud report." "We cannot pay this back," Robert yelled. "We spent that money years ago." "I know," I said, "but you have assets. I suggest you liquidate them, starting with the boat." Linda started to cry. She grabbed Robert's arm. "Robert, the boat, we just bought it." "It is not your boat," I said. "It belongs to the taxpayers of this state, and indirectly it belongs to Leo." Robert looked around the room. He saw the faces of my coworkers. He saw the security guard approaching from the elevator. He realized he had no power here. This was not his dining room table. This was my domain. "You are ungrateful," he spat. "We are family." "Family does not steal from children," I said. "Now please leave, or I will have security escort you out." They left. They walked out of the office with their heads down. They looked small. They looked old. They looked like thieves who had finally been caught. They tried to fight it. They threatened to sue. But you cannot sue math. The state does not negotiate with fraudsters. The evidence was irrefutable. They had signed the annual recertification forms every year, confirming Mark lived with them. It was perjury. To get their monthly pension checks turned back on, they had to make a lump sum restitution payment. They had no choice. They needed that income to live. They sold the boat the next week. Because it was used, they took a $15,000 loss. They had to cover the difference by selling Linda's car. They drained their emergency savings. They maxed out their credit cards. The state recovered its money. But here is the beautiful part. Because I control the beneficiary designations now, I enforced a mandatory update. I removed them as custodians of Leo's account due to proven financial malfeasance regarding the pension. I took over the UTMA. They paid the state back, and I made sure Mark finally woke up. When he saw the fraud report, when he saw that they had been using his name to steal money for a decade, something broke in him. He realized he was not their son. He was their income stream. He deducted the $60,000 they stole from us from the allowance he used to give them. He stopped paying for their cell phone bills. He stopped paying for their dinners. The boat is gone. Their reputation at the Lake Club is destroyed. Everyone knows what they did. Small towns talk, and they haven't seen Leo since. Financial abuse is domestic abuse. Just because they're grandparents does not mean they have a right to your child's future. If you have ever had to protect your family from the people who should have been protecting you, share your story below and click hype to help this reach anyone who needs to know that a title is not a pass to steal. They told me I was just a paper pusher. They were right, but they forgot that paper is what holds the whole world together. And when you light a match in a library, do not be surprised when the librarian locks the door. Stay safe, stay solvent, and check your beneficiary forms.